Hi. You gonna let your daddy be in charge, or you want to be in charge?
It's kind of funny. Sometimes I call her little booties, and she looked at me. She says, "No, big booty." I was just like, "No, you're very little. You're not. You're little." And you say, "I'm a big booty." I'm like, okay. I said, "Why don't I just call you little mama instead?" How about that?
Nice ring.
It's pretty
Uh,
cool because
Please send me your link, your Facebook link.
so this is pretty cool. Where this is the live thing on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty excited that all this stuff is happening.
Yeah, it's the new and improved show, new format.
All right. Let's move these over right here.
What's the order?
The order of who's speaking when? I don't know. We'll figure that out. But I want to thank everyone for showing up and oh, so I'll stand. Were you able to switch that over?
Yeah.
Oh, you did switch it over. Okay. So we'll have a lot of people on the live portion. Did you have any issues?
No issue.
Okay, because it's very scary because it's after 3 and I didn't hear anything.
It's live.
Okay, Ed, if you want to get started.
Oh, well, welcome to the Troy Show, everyone. We have a brand new format. We're live streaming. We're on LinkedIn, live stream, YouTube, Facebook, and on Zoom. So I think all the participants that we see are the ones that are on Zoom. We don't see the ones on the other channels. This is an event, expert panel event, where we're going to be talking about the relationship cycle. And you guys have received emails from us just talking about how important relationships are in building your business. And these 3 guys are experts in that area because they have done a great job of building their business through relationships. I had an opportunity to talk to everyone for 15 minutes. Actually, the 15-minute call I had with these guys ended up being over an hour. Mac and I didn't get a chance to do our 15-minute call, but Mac and I have talked twice before. And he's the guy that I invited to the talk because I've been so impressed with all the things that he's doing. But these guys are going to have a chance to introduce themselves in just a moment. You guys have had an opportunity to send us your questions, so we're going to get to as many of them as possible, although in 45 minutes, I don't know how many we'll get through, but we're going to get through as many as we can. With that, Troy, what do you want to cover next, sir?
I am having a little delays in here. I want to talk about the host a little bit. I think everyone knows who I am. I'm the not so boring LinkedIn guy. So I'm the person that wrangles everyone up together to kind of have these events. And then we have Ed Forteau, the gentleman that's speaking. If you end up having issues on deliverability, which is about 40% of my clients, they end up having deliverability issues.
Just 40%? Wow.
Yeah, from what I know and everything. And then we have Jean-Michel, which is not on right now. He lives in Texas, and apparently they only have electricity 3 or 4 times a week on that, so he was not able to join. But he is
in Texas, I think.
He's a good friend of mine and also another LinkedIn gentleman. So I want to thank the guys for really putting in the hard work, because Ed's sending out these emails, he's vetting, we get systems going out, reminders, and we have Jean-Michel giving a lot of feedback on how to do things in a great way. So right now we have actually 3 panelists, and we picked these individuals because of their expertise. We also have like a LinkedIn or business expert, and this time we have Mac. And how do you pronounce your last name, Mac? Unless you're on mute.
Yeah. Maybe if I unmute, that'll help me pronounce it better than just sitting here mouthing it away. So it's Laubscher.
Labshire. Okay.
Laubscher.
Just how it's spelled.
Labshire. Okay. He's another LinkedIn expert, and he's actually shown me things as LinkedIn makes changes. Say, hey, Troy, did you know you could do this? I was like, oh, I do now. We have Dan here, and we have two coaches actually. One is mindset for growth for entrepreneurs, and the other one is Craig, which are two similar coaches, but they have entirely different flavors. And Dan takes the approach of a very methodical, mechanical type of individual. So his clients tend to be like more engineers, people that do a step-by-step process, while Craig takes an approach based on that individual. So a lot of Craig's clients are not like that. You know, they're across the board, and they generate things and convert things based on looking within. So I want to thank the gentleman for coming on board and also actually helping sponsor this as well. So without further ado, really what we want to talk about and learn today, what it takes to gain clients through a relationship life cycle. Now, a lot of people want to know, what do you mean relationship life cycle? And all these things really are on two ends. They're on the personal end and they're on the business end. And they usually kind of cross over. And they're talking about your story as a human. What's your brand as a company and as a vibe? What type of service, that you're providing? How do you stay human? And then how to incorporate systems and touch points that will kind of further along the relationship process. And then the last part is client fulfillment. Now, these are just general categories. We're not going to get too much into every little thing, but I want to get to these slides fairly quickly so we can kind of have a temperature meter, a temperature check to make sure that we're actually answering questions. So we'll end up answering questions and having conversations in general. And then each one of our panelists will have a certain takeaway. And then we'll separate for the panelists to speak individually. And then they'll actually give you a link to speak to them further, or whatever they want to provide. Now, the big question is, I think I need a bigger screen here. There you go. Where do we start? And the most important thing is to understand, what it is. And I wanted to separate it in two different sections. Number one is the self, and the second one is the business. And the self is yourself, how to improve yourself, how to get yourself right, and then how to incorporate yourself in order to move the business. And you can see right now, there is a lot of overlap. And we talk about balance, stability, awareness, accountability, happiness, which also goes along with mindset, routines, systems, processes, execution, actually doing the things that you're setting up and planning, communication, relationships, fulfillment, and growth, or either maintaining the clients. Sometimes you don't want to grow too much if you have a certain manageable level in order to do that. Oops, sorry. On the Mac is very sensitive here. So I'll go ahead and stop the screen. And what I want to do is I want to probably start from my left to right. If you guys actually want to touch on those things, you know what? Let's start on the personal end. And Dan, I think you're on mute right now. You saw that list there, and usually problems start from within. I wanted to know if you want to chime in to say anything about that chart in order to how it relates to the relationship life cycle.
Well, like you said, I tend to believe that things happen from the inside out. So it all starts here, and then it happens in your world. So I think it's critical that you get a clear image of what you want in your mind. I have a different view. So I think of everything being a feedback loop. So if I want to win and if I want to succeed at something and if I want to have good relationships, then I reverse engineer it. So if I think I want to leave somebody feeling good for having met me, then what do I need to do that's going to help them feel that way? And everybody's different, so I can't say that I'm going to use the same approach with everybody. But essentially, everybody has problems. Everybody wants solutions to their problems. So that's what I aim to provide them. And fortunately and unfortunately, I have so many resources in my head. One of my friends said that so much wisdom needs an outlet, and so my outlet is to share it with folks like you that are here today. And I read, study, and learn all the time. And so I always have a resource or a solution. I'll challenge anybody to give me any problem, and I will solve it. So, but it does, like you were saying, inside out versus outside in. Behaviors, when we're changing behaviors, that's like changing on the outside. If we're going to change and if we're going to build relationships, we have to do it from the inside. So it comes from our attitude, which is our thoughts, feelings, and actions. That's the combination. So anyway, I don't know if I gave a context in terms of what you were suggesting there or what you were talking about, but that's the way I do it. If you want to win or you want to succeed at something and you want to build relationships, then design it backwards so that in the end they leave feeling good and they want to know you more. They will remember you.
Yeah, that way, if you're talking about a feedback loop, and working from within first. So I would imagine if you know yourself better, it's easier to pay attention to help other individuals, and if you're really ignorant about yourself, it's going to be more difficult to just run communications. It's pretty cool because we have a couple dozen people on LinkedIn Live. I'm seeing this right now. And what I should have asked is where everyone's coming from, but maybe I'll save that for after this. Craig, do you want to chime in and give us your thoughts on that process in order to kind of build better relationships?
Yeah. So I love this conversation. So hello, everybody. I'm Craig Bruce, and I work with executives and entrepreneurs who are struggling with burnout. And there are a lot of folks out there right now that are struggling with some form of burnout. So for me, what resonated with that model is the mindset. And I think, Dan talked about what's coming from inside. Troy, you talked about what's coming from inside. And so for me, as I'm building relationships, it all starts with me, and it's who I want to be and how do I want to show up every day. And that's to get really clear around who am I going to be and how am I going to show up. And those are the conversations that I have with my clients. And I think that's the important place to start.
It's kind of interesting because it's almost opposite, who do I want to be is how you're outward projecting where, I don't know if it's a place and time or that sort of thing. And then you end up creating these habits to become this person,
I would say that who I want to be really starts internally. I don't see that as an external focus. That's who I'm going to be. And let's get clear around that. And I honestly, Troy, I think that does start from within. Now, eventually people will see it. You hope people see it, but I think that really starts with internally, and that's clarity.
Awesome. Okay, Mac, you're the throw a LinkedIn spin on that or something. I don't know.
Well, it's quite an interesting conversation because this is what both Craig and Dan have mentioned there already. There's some really important insights there that unfortunately people miss out when it comes to when they want to go out on LinkedIn, as an example. And one of my coaches, business coaches, a guy called Beju Solanki, a few years ago, sat there and he explained, I heard him on stage talking about the be, do, have concept, which some of you may know. And for me, I was sitting there and I was like, be, do, have, I was like, I've always been trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up. And then I look at this person, I try their style, that doesn't work for me. I don't get the results they do. Then I look at somebody else, I do what they do, don't get the results. But that's because I'm trying to emulate somebody else, and I'm never happy because you're always going through these motions. And the be do have concept is such a simple concept, because if you start, as Craig was saying, start with self, then it's pretty easy, because you start making a list of what I will and what I won't do. So you're putting your standards out there first. And when you start with that concept, it's like if you could imagine a Olympic athlete, if they go, I am an Olympic athlete, then they know what they must do in order to be able to get that gold medal. Now, the gold medal result is all the stuff they have to do. So when they wake up in the morning and they want to go to McDonald's, they go, well, I don't go to McDonald's. I'm an Olympic athlete. It's just, that's a decision that's made. It's so much easier to make decisions in line with what you want to be. But if you're sitting there and you're going, I want that nice car. What does he do? I'm going to try and do what he do. And then you keep moving. So what happens is we keep moving our goalposts and then reducing our expectations to try and meet that until there's a life event or something happens. And then we go, hey, we've got to change the whole course of action because I don't like what I'm doing. And, I love it because my kids always ask me, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I'm like, I'm still figuring out. But I love what I do because I know who I am and what I have to be. And that makes my messaging and everything else that I do so much easier, because I can choose. I can just go, well, is this in line with who I want to be, with my values, my morals, and everything that I want to do? And if a client says, hey, I want you to do X, Y, Z, but that's not in line with who I want to be, that's a very easy decision. But if you're focused on money or on the outcome, you will always give up and compromise, and therefore you'll be struggling most of your life.
Hey, Matt, Troy, can I follow up on that? Because Matt, brilliant that you brought up be, do, have. Absolutely, because from a business perspective, it wasn't until I decided to be an international influencer to executives and started acting like that versus just posting on Facebook, just et cetera, the activities. It wasn't until I shifted that mindset that my business started taking off. So I think you're brilliant to bring that up. Thank you.
So that goes along with reframing and understanding why are these tasks important? Is posting important? But what do we post? And most important, why are we posting? If we have a messaging campaign or if we have tasks to entice or interact or build your network, why are we doing that? I guess, reframe it towards that, having a purpose. And it's also pretty interesting, Mac, that you brought up, those items, because if you see someone doing something and they seem successful and you try to emulate, well, that's not always a bad thing. You have to put your own spin on it. But if you don't have enough time to take the good bits and incorporate it in your life, you're going to be a jack of all trades. So you ended up doing a little bit and a little bit here and a little bit there, and then it all goes to waste. I think these things take time, and you have to pick your goals and understand that. And again, it comes from within. What are my standards? And Craig knows me probably better than most of you. I make mistakes like everyone else, and I'll tell a little bit of a horror story. Not horror story, but things that I learned. And there's a level of doing well, and there's a level of desperation sometimes. And a lot of these entrepreneurs get caught in this loop. Like, I really want to help this person, and I want to go through these steps in order to help this person. But am I doing myself a disservice for engaging with this person, because their ask may go beyond my wheelhouse of activities? So I may be very good at certain things, but this client or friend or person is asking me to do things that I don't, it's not my thing to do. And then what happens is, okay, sure, I'll take the money. It may be a short-term thing. I'll help them get where they want. But what it really does is it derails you. It moves you off. It blocks you from getting other clients. And in order to get a system where you're in business and you're doing, B2B or high value services, you got to keep it moving. You have to, and some of these deals take, for example, if you're IT business, they typically take 3 to 9 months to close these longer deals. If you're a coach, you may have a target of 1 or 2 new clients per month. So if you're occupied with somebody that's absorbing a lot of your time, that's just not the right fit, it takes you a lot of time to get the traction. It's not like, okay, that client is gone now. Now I'm going to pick up all these other clients, right? No, you forget that you have to have traction, and that traction takes several months. So you're not just 2 weeks or 4 weeks behind, you're 3 weeks behind. Now you have a gap. You have a gap. Another story is that giving discounts. And I did a post the other day. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but it was the getting discount from an expert coach, right? That's an awful idea. I mean, unless you have a relationship with that individual, but if you go beyond what's reasonable just to try to make something work, it's not a good thing. I had one particular person, and I love him to death. A really great guy, great business he got going on. He didn't have the full funds to work with me, so I worked with him. And I split the payments, I reduced it. I had to cover at least my cost on it, and, things like that. We have hard costs and all that. And he didn't make the first payment after all that. And I slapped myself because I realized this is a Troy problem. This is my mistake for going that route, and it's one thing that Dan is really strong, and I'm gonna show you one screen here. Let's see here. Where's the, gotta find this. This happens every time. Let's see. There you go. And there's one thing that we probably want to talk about. There you go. So this is the accountability loop. Does anyone is anyone familiar with this image that I took off someone else's post?
I'm definitely familiar with it because my designers created it. So, but yeah.
Yes, feel free, Dan.
Concept. Yeah, well, it's a great concept. So the thing is, like, you can see right in the middle there, intention. So what separates intention versus or victimhood versus accountability? What separates results versus blaming and complaining? And there's I say, like, reasons and results are like oil and water. They don't mix. So these don't mix either. So you're either blaming, hiding, denying, ignoring, those types of things, and that's your behavior. Those are your behaviors, and that's reflected back to you in your life, and you get confirmation bias, which basically means the world justifies that to you through your experiences. Or you have accountability, and you take action, and you learn, and you apply yourself, and you forgive and own and recognize. So 2 different personalities and 2 different approaches in life. I'd have to say most people fall into the victim loop just because of our society and the legal system, everything. It just seems like we have so many systems around us that support the victim loop, so we tend to follow there. News media, for one, right? So,
well, that definitely makes sense. I have 2 bullet points here, and it's like you really can't control what other people do. You can set up systems in place that kind of make it in your favor of probability, but one thing we can control is how do we handle that outcome, and if we find out, like the stories that I gave you, I found out that I made a mistake, I shouldn't have jump through hoops to help someone and make all these arrangements and burned all my time to do it. And that's something that I have to recognize. I have to own it. Then I have to forgive myself, saying, okay, well, you're just trying to do good, but there's a line that where maybe you shouldn't cross. I need to self-examine myself, and then I need to learn from it. And my next action would be not to do that, to have my certain standards of how I'm working, I don't know if anyone else wants to chime on that or not.
Well, let me just mention something else. So this is all about having 100% accountability. In my business, in my line of work, and in my life, everything, I'm 100% accountable. I'm taking action. I'm either reactive or proactive. I get to choose. And if you want to take a page out of the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz said, even if somebody put a gun to your head, you still have a choice, right? So you're 100% accountable. And that's, that's what I believe in. And when you take that approach, it's not like life is just happening to you, it's responding to you. And if you think of it that way, everything is a response based on some sort of action or thought that you've had in the past or even today.
That's interesting. So you believe that we're 100% accountable, or you're saying we're 100% accountable of our decisions based on what's happening. Like I said, you can't really control others. So sometimes you're not 100% in control, but control and accountable, 2 different things, right?
Well, let's just put it this way. So let's use children because it's so easy. So 2 of them are in a room, they're fighting, and you go in there and you break it up, right? They need to separate. They're having a conflict, they need separation. Got it. Well, after they've cooled down, you can say, well, could you fight if your brother or sister wasn't here? No. Well, okay. So you're in the same space as them. So you made a decision to be in the same space. So it's the same thing in life. We either invite people in and circumstances in, or we uninvite them. And like we've been talking about since the beginning here, and others had mentioned, when you know yourself, you know what matters to you, you know your values, your morals, or principles, and you know the kinds of people that you want to engage with, then you basically have a shield up against everything else. And you only invite those kinds of people in. It takes a little while to get to that level. I don't think.
Tell me about that. What is the normal turnaround time? And I know it's different for everyone, but what is a normal turn? Like, for example, you're having this life and you're used to living a certain way. You should inviting the wrong people in your. It's just normal for you, and to break those habits, there's going to be a very lonely period of time. I mean, let's just be honest, because you're used to having friends, and all of a sudden you find out you have no friends because you have to cut them off, and then you gain newer friends. For example, my partners here are some great guys. Everyone here on the show, I know personally, but that takes time. So what would be expected, like, to be normal to go through this transition?
Good question. Although I think it's personal, right? Because there's something called the emotional cycle of change, and everybody goes through those cycles differently. So it varies, but it's probably likely months. But if somebody is grappling with it and resisting it, then it's going to take a lot longer. But if they soon realize, you know what, I've had the wrong people in my life, I've invited circumstances and situations, I've had breakdowns. And the key here is the contrast. So if you have a contrasting experience, then you can make a change. My mentor was Bob Proctor. He always said, write down the things you don't like on one side of the sheet, and then write the things you do like on the other side. And then start focusing your attention on the things you want and the things you do like. And the things that you don't like will start diminishing and go away. They won't die necessarily, but they'll diminish. His story is that he was in a bar one night and he was learning and growing his businesses, and he looked around and he realized he was around a bunch of drunks and nobodies.
And he realized he was a drunken nobody too, right?
And so he took his beer and he put it down. He said, "I'm never coming back here again." And that was it. He walked out. That was it. He cut it off, right? You have to cut it off, and then then he had to reset his life and engage with the right people. I did the same thing in high school. I was hanging around people that were at a lower level, and then I started making friends that are higher level because I was in general level, and then there was advanced, and and I just had to say, "Hey, I want to be advanced." Right? Somebody said
the rule is to network up. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
You definitely want to network up. So Gerald, he's on the LinkedIn Live. He asked a question. What are the 4 agreements?
Good question. I don't have them here, but if I
Okay,
could,
thanks for nothing. No.
I could pull the book off the shelf, but I don't know all the 4 agreements memorized. I did read the book, but I did not study it. So maybe that's my next book to study. But yeah, the 4 agreements is Don Miguel Ruiz. Great little book though, but it does teach you. At least one of them is about 100% responsibility. Like there's no question about that. That's one thing he talks about, and he puts it into context so that in the end you realize, you know what, if life is reflecting things back to you, then what do I need to do? What is it that I need to do? You know, what am I going to put out so that I can get back what I want? Like, you know, if you want more love people more. Send love. Send them, you know,
Dan,
Sure.
Dan, I can help you out with that. I've read the book and I actually didn't remember. I just Googled it. So I'm happy to share. Because I don't have these memorized. The first one is be impeccable with your word. The second is don't take anything personally. The third is don't make assumptions. And the fourth is always do your best. Pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, big standards to live by. If you can do it, great. If
Yeah.
you don't, at least die trying.
You know, the other thing that keeps coming up for me, and I think it's a thread running through this conversation, is the importance as an individual of identifying very early on what are your values and what's important to you, and use those as filters for every decision you make, both personally and professionally. And I find that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do that. And that's a real, for me, that is, that's one of the first places to start.
Yeah, going along with that, Craig, in order to do the things that you should be doing and not doing, let's talk about systems, right? Or habits, you know, systems, habits, you know, taking action to those things. So what I have, and if anyone's interested, just send me a note on LinkedIn or a message. But what I have is a daily process for my clients. And they say, if Troy, I'm committed to you, I will work 45 minutes a day to do A, B, and C. I say, block this time out. Let's figure out what's the most important thing to do within that time frame. And so this is a day-to-day process, and this is only on the LinkedIn side. But Craig, you have processes as well. And so if you want to talk about some real world examples in order to kind of formulate some of these processes, and then we can kind of roll into the kind of how it affects clients, your client relationship. Sorry.
Yeah. So again, I work with executives and entrepreneurs on their health and lifestyle. And the first place we start is mindset, although we kind of back our way into it. Because if someone comes to you and comes to me and says, I need to work on my health and lifestyle, and I say, we want to start with mindset, they don't hire me. Right. So we back into it. But I think for me, when I think of systems, I think of rituals and I think of habits. Right. And I use the word rituals very intentionally, not routine, because I think there's a definition in how one perceives a ritual versus a routine. So for example, create a morning ritual to start you off first thing in the morning and set you up for success. Create an evening ritual that protects that last hour before you go to bed so that you get a good night's sleep. So Troy, when I think of systems, that's what I think about with what I do with my clients. Did that answer your question?
It did. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm trying to multitask, and men are genetically not equipped to multitask because I have these questions coming up on the thing, and but it did answers my question quite a bit. What I want to do is spend about maybe like 4 minutes each to really kind of have you guys talk about yourself, and if you want anyone to communicate with you, how to contact you. And, Craig, since we ended with you, let's start with you again. Can you tell me exactly what you do and why you do it, and then why someone would want to talk to you?
Yeah. So as I said, so thank you, and again, I'm just honored to be part of this amazing panel. So thank you for this opportunity. So as I said earlier, I work with executives and entrepreneurs who are struggling with burnout, and really help them reignite their energy and live a life of clarity, purpose, and intention. And I do that through one-on-one coaching, where we focus on mindset, nourish, restore, and move. So those are the 4 pillars. And honestly, why I do this is because I was a burned out global executive who was so driven. And Ed and Troy have heard this story before. I was so driven that my doctor ordered me to bed rest, and my version of bed rest was my laptop, my cell phone, and conference calls from my bed. And so it was in that moment that I knew I had to do something different, because I wasn't going to change, and it was killing me. So I'm really driven now. My mission is really to take executives and entrepreneurs from burnout and transform their lives into more clarity, intention, and purpose, because everybody's working hard, really hard. And you want to be around to enjoy the life you've worked so hard to build.
And how can someone get in contact with you? Do they just go to your profile?
Yeah, so they can go to my profile. And then here's the other thing is I have a, and I just put it in the chat, I have a complimentary, my 3 secrets to reignite your energy and crush burnout. And there's a lot of good science-based habits that are easy to do, like wake up in the morning and hydrate before you caffeinate. And there's a lot of science that would suggest why you want water before caffeine. So little things like that.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Troy.
Mac, can you tell me a little bit about what you do, how it's different, and how someone can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully my sound's okay, because I keep getting this warning about low signal. So my name is Mac Laupscher, and firstly, you can find me on LinkedIn, ironically, or you can go to, where's the link over here called the linkedinexpert.com, or you can go to the QR code on this, and you can go and connect with me and come and meet some of my community. So I specialize in helping people build meaningful connections on LinkedIn, and helping people that are already experts find their voice on LinkedIn. Because one of the biggest challenges I saw when the pandemic hit is I saw a lot of experts who you put them on stage, or you put them in a boardroom, you put them in front of the right people, they had them in the palm of their hands. But when they came onto LinkedIn, they were putting out this amazing content, and it was like tumbleweeds rolling by, nobody engaging, one like, and it was probably, the admin who was running the company page. So for me, it's about, and I was spending tens of thousands of pounds on all these experts who were giving me all this advice, and getting, the ROI and the cost per acquisition was just through the roof. And when I learned these basic things of building relationships, based on the things we were talking about today, I found methods that really get results and get anywhere between 90 and 100% acceptance rate when you connect with people. And give you
so let's speak on that. Just like Craig gave some good advice, so what I want is some actionable advice. So if you had to give a tip in order to increase, I guess we'll just roll with that, increase your acceptance rate to 80 to 100%. What's the average? Let's start this. What's the average acceptance rate?
It all depends on industry and person. So a lot of us have had, connect and pitch. And there are a lot of people in sales that are just running those numbers, and anything like 10% is great for them because they think that's great, but they're burning.
Oh, that's awful on LinkedIn. We're talking about LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
If a client gets below 15% acceptance rate, I have to let them go. So that's a bare minimum. So I always target 40 to 50%, but it's a little easier for people like you and I. You know, let's just be honest, because we have stellar profiles, we have a large network. People want to be contacted with us. So that is not the case with everyone. So if someone needed to increase their 15% to say 80% or something along that range, what are some clear tips that they could use to do that?
Okay, so for me, the simplest is there are three parts that you really have to remember when it comes to LinkedIn. One is your profile, then it's your content, and then it's your outreach. Do not go and waste your time doing outreach if your profile isn't up to date and speaks to your target audience. A waste of time, because that's going to drop your conversion rate already. If you're then putting out content that shows you're a thought leader and you're an expert in your industry, that backs up your credibility. But then when you do that outreach, do not talk about I, me, and myself. That is one of the biggest things, that if you go and reach out and connect to somebody, you start talking I, me, and myself in the first DM, you've lost them. So talk about,
big issue. You're absolutely right.
show them that you've taken the time to look at their profile. I don't know how many times we get connection requests, and I'd love to hear about what you do. It's like, well, did you not check out my profile? It's very, very simple starting point. But if you go and use two things on your DM side of things, one is voice message, and the other video message, and send, like today, I had 10 new connections that came in a row. I had a bit of time. I sent each one of them a voice message, and 9 out of 10 have booked on to go and sign up just to come and meet me on a Zoom with some of my clients next week, purely because I have time to mention them, what they do, what their background is. And it took me,
So do you prefer doing a voice message? And by the way, doing that is a LinkedIn feature. So the LinkedIn app feature. So LinkedIn gives you the ability to send a native video and a native voice message. And for Mac, your voice messages convert very well, right? Oh, I think we're losing him.
He's frozen.
I would just say yes, it does. Because when I do a video message, I get about 1/3 of the people who see that book a meeting. And so that ends up being about 15% of the people there. So it works really well because it's personalized and you're talking about them and you're not selling. I'm going to move on.
Two things. What were the voice message was one? What was the other? Because I don't know. I didn't hear it, but I'm sure other people didn't hear it either.
Oh, okay. So Mac was talking about the voice message.
He can answer that question. Mac, jump on and voice message. And what was the other method? Your mic. Yeah, there you go.
Just the system just decided to mute me. Obviously, I was talking. So voice message is the one, and that, as Troy was saying, that's through the application. And then the second one is video, also through the application. But the two things: the moment you speak to somebody, don't go, "Hi, this is my name's Ed." Just instead of doing that, going, "Hey Ed, how are you? I just checked out your profile, noticed XYZ. Sounds exciting about what you do. I've just decided to send you a quick voice message just to introduce myself and say hi." And just something that basic will start a conversation going. But the moment you start with I, me, and myself, you're onto a back foot straight away.
Yeah, you kind of dehumanize it and you pro sales it. It's awful. People don't like being sold, So that's a great tip. Thanks for explaining. Hey, Dan, I'll have you next. If you can give a few minutes about what you do, why you do it different, how they can contact you, and then one solid tip they can actually take and use in the relationship process.
Certainly. All right. So Dan LaFave is my name, and I focus on working with growth-minded entrepreneurs, more specifically in the software and IT world. And I'm helping them scale their businesses to 7 and 8 figures by working on their mindsets, skill sets, and systems, with a heavy emphasis on systems, because I find that if you have systems, it takes all the heavy lifting away, because oftentimes we're not automated or organized in such a way that we can just do things easily. And unfortunately, we take the path of least effort. We're all wired for that. If you look at a child and you ask them to do something, they're wired for the path of least effort. So the thing is that you need to have a few things in place if you're going to strategize, systematize, and optimize your business. And so I use a planning system, which I'm happy to share here, but it's a planning system that is not friendly or fun, but it gets things done. And it's 12 weeks, and it's about reverse engineering your business, because if you keep measuring backwards, like how am I better today than I was last week, how is my week better, how am I gaining, what's my progress, then you're always going to be in what I call gain mode. And gain mode really matters, because self-criticism, fear of failure, these are the things that cause people to get paralyzed. So if you want to go from being paralyzed to systematized or systemized, then you need to have certain systems in place, mindsets, practices, like Craig was saying, mindsets and rituals and practices, just things that you can do habitually. You need to take the cognitive load off so that you can get things done. And so the systems that I have do that. I just, it's all about what's your goals, what's your objective, what do you want, why do you want it, and in it there are a few things. It's about your heart set, what's really motivating you, and what is your mindset, what's your perspective, and what do you need to adjust there so that you can go to the future and be a future version of yourself. Because we all have a future identity of ourselves, but have we ever built it? Have we ever thought about, what that future identity would look like and the kinds of things we would do? And then, so in my system, we were measuring, your business development plus your health and your relationships, because those are the three pillars. Any one of those goes down and the whole thing crumbles. It's like a pyramid. It'll break and crack. And so, but the idea is that you're focusing on your business because you want to build a business that's going to give you the freedom for your whatever you want to do for your health and your relationships. And so it's a holistic approach. It looks like it's totally unfriendly, like an Apple computer, but it's not. It's not.
Is it like an Apple computer?
Yeah, well, they're a closed system, right? I mean, that's how they're designed, right? So it's a closed system. So it's like,
got it.
Come inside, lock the door, let's get to work. And in 12 weeks' time, you're going to be a new and improved version of yourself, whether you like it or not. And that's the level of commitment. And, but it's always like I'm talking about measuring backwards, because when you do, you can stay in what I call gain mode. And that matters, because self-criticism and fear of failure, all those things are what causes us to procrastinate and hesitate. And, anybody can do that. That's the easy way.
Yeah, I can do that pretty well. Smart people are lazy. If you're really smart, because you find all these shortcuts on how to do it. It's like getting this master mechanic and you take a look at their car. It's usually pretty crappy, And so we're naturally going to find the path of less resistant, like you said, Dan. So I want two things from you, Dan. Number one is, how should they contact you? And number two, can you get one solid bit of advice they can use into their life right now?
Sure. Well, contacting me on LinkedIn is the best. I'm active there. I'm posting. I have a newsletter, and I'm sharing insights all the time. Like I don't know if you know the term Kaizen practitioner, but I am one. I read, study, and learn all the time, and so I'm always sharing resources. So happy to connect with you there. And I am also going to provide access to this planning system that I was referring to, and there's a training video in there and everything. So I'll put that in the chat here. It's called Focus Productivity System, and it's 12 weeks long. And like I said, it's not fun, but it's for the engineering type minds who don't mind structure and staying organized and getting things done.
Well, that's fun for them, right?
Yeah. Well, it could be, but there's a lot of anxiety in there because it is going through an emotional cycle of change. And but anyway, like I said, it's for somebody who really wants to accomplish something that they might say, I want in 12 months, but they're going to do it in 12 weeks. They're going to really focus, get it done, and put the pedal to the metal, and then celebrate afterwards.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the Q&A. So what we've done so far is we really talked to different aspects of just how to improve ourselves and within relationships. I talked about systems and in keeping track. One thing I didn't mention is, some common things like a CRM. So I have something called linked CRM that kind of centralizes data, but it doesn't really matter what system you use. But I have a system in place on how to move that relationship forward. So I have a primary CRM, and I'm using what's it called now? Pipedrive. It's a very common CRM. And so I grab information. I say, yeah, this person is a great to be a partner. He's a great influencer, or they're talking about this particular program. I'm able to push it to the pipeline for that. And so that's a system, as well as what do I do within that hour and how to convert those individuals into better relationships. So if anyone wants to talk about that a little bit later, or if they got some questions on just systems on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to me on that. Now, we have a number of questions that came up. Matt Liberizing Raiden asked a question about Zoom features and stuff. Well, he probably brought this question up because we're using a lot of different technologies. This is kind of the first time, to be honest with you. He says, if you could design your own Zoom to fit within your approach to LinkedIn relationship marketing, what kind of functionality would you want to include in your own version? Well, that's an interesting question. I guess it has to do with systems. If I had to have my own version of Zoom, I like the aspects of a webinar where you can pre-send out information to the other speakers. But I like a regular Zoom meeting where you can have to see people's faces, as you see their expressions. So one thing I see is the webinar features lack the personal component, and if you can combine those in an easy format. And also, if there was a way to kind of restream it out with it was kind of a pain setting this thing up. I didn't even know that last button until Mac told me, and I went through technical support for an hour to set all these things up for the other streaming stuff. So that's what I would do, a one-and-all streaming type platform to not just go live, but maybe create a podcast or go streaming on TV. So there's three main platforms. There's all the streaming stuff happening: LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, Facebook Live. I even have an Instagram Live. And then they have the TV streaming, which is a different animal. And then they have podcast. I don't know if anyone wants to chime in. I just thought I would reply to Matt's question there. Kind of nerdy like me. So these are some of the questions that came up. And what I want is the panelists to feel free to go and answer that. Oh, you know what, Ed, before I forget, we have just a few minutes. Do you want to tell them about the giveaway that we have in general that we'll be pushing out?
Sure, I can do that. We're going to be doing an ongoing giveaway, and it'll start sometime next week. And there'll be 3 different prizes. The first one is from Troy. Second one is going to be from Jean-Michel, and they're both LinkedIn based. Troy is actually giving away a month of consulting for his new program. So that's a pretty valuable prize, probably the most of the 3. And then I have a prize also. But what we'll be doing is trying to increase the size of our community. All you have to do to enter is to share a post, invite your friends via email, invite them through the different messaging platforms on all the different social networking platforms that are out there. There's going to be more information about it next week, so keep an eye out on your email for that. But with Troy, how much is your month of consulting valued at? Not only are you given a month of consulting, they're also going to get at the end of that month one of your courses.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is it's usually about $350 a month, and I'm adding the courses along with it. And so I have 3 sets of courses, over 100 videos. So one of them is they're worth $159. So I would say it's $509 or something like that, that people would typically pay. And what I offer is this blunt advice. They go in there and there's 10 different modules. So usually if you're doing LinkedIn stuff, you have one issue or another, and what we do is we take the most important problem and we try to resolve that. I also have unlimited email support where I send back Loom videos, and then we have some one-on-one time every single month. So it's very helpful, and it's for the people who are helping in the giveaway. It's free, you know. So I have certain amount of slots that I can fill until I'm kind of full with that. Hopefully that answers your question.
So yeah, what will end up happening is once Troy is full, the prizes will rotate, and Jean-Michel's prize would be the first one on the list. And his, I believe, is a profile makeover course, a PDF, and there's a course involved with that. That could be unlimited. And then mine is an email deliverability checklist, which I sell for $200. If you'll want the checklist. It's something that'll allow you to figure out where your emails are landing and what you need to do to fix them. But that consulting package with Troy is quite valuable. Once the contest or the giveaway begins, it will be ongoing. So if Troy's prize is moved to the second or third slot, you should still keep inviting your friends because we're trying to grow the community. And at some point, Troy's prize will jump back up to the first spot. So when we open it up, you guys that want a month consulting with Troy and leverage the advice that our panelists have shared with you today, I would jump all over it. Awesome.
So we have a couple of questions, starting with Monica White. She says, and this is for all the panelists, of course, can you tell me how to get a contract for a provider's office? I have a medical billing company, but I have never really figured out how to grow my business. Not all at once. I'll start with Mac. How about that? Because it sounds like it's more of a business relationship question that has to do with growing their business through LinkedIn.
So can you clarify the question there again, Troy?
Yes, she says, how can I get a contract for a provider's office, which I don't know what it means, but I have a medical billing company and I could never figure out how to grow my business. So she needs to, she has a billing company and she's trying to grow her business on LinkedIn. Do you have any quick advice for her?
If you've got a billing company and you want to grow on LinkedIn,
did he just knock off? Or is he just faking it and staying still? Okay, I'll answer.
Premises as well, so.
There you go. He's back on now. You were like a McDonald's drive-through. We didn't hear a word you said.
I disappeared there. What I was saying is, without having enough information, it's very difficult to try and answer what the problem is that she's facing.
Well, there's a couple of basic things that you brought up, and I'll kind of speed it along. Number one, making sure that your profile is clearly defines who you are and what you do. Make sure it's branded properly. You have a great story. You're SEO compliant. So that's the first thing that people see. You need to bump up your acceptance rate. You know, another thing that you want to do is probably connect with people that have the audience that you want, and then follow their content. By following their content, you have the ability to influence that audience. Yeah. And then the third thing I would suggest is use Sales Navigator. Sales Navigator can help you pinpoint businesses. And it's not just one approach. There's several things you do in sequence on these different approaches that really allow you to extend that relationship. Salespeople say that there's 14 touch points before a sale or a meeting or something like that. It keeps on changing, right? When they say X amount of touch points, they're not talking about spamming them email or spamming them direct messages. They're talking about how do you touch them in different areas, like a post, for example. How do you have a conversation with the post? How do you connect with them? How do you have that conversation on LinkedIn? How do you have it off of LinkedIn? You know, so those are the three things that I would probably suggest. Let me see here. What are the best things you can do if you're just starting out as a consultant? All right, so if you are a new consultant, whether it's a health coach, mental coach, business coach, and you're just starting out, what's the advice that you would give that individual?
Yeah, so I'll take that one. I think you gotta ask yourself 3 questions. Okay, what problem do I solve? For whom? And what's the process I use? You got to get real clear about your ideal client, the problem you solve, and how you solve it.
Perfect. Really good stuff. I'm going to skip through some of these questions here. They say, Troy, how did you get 20,000 followers and what are some things you can do with that? Yeah, so I think about around next week, I'll have about 20,000 followers. There's a lot of things that you can do. One advantage that I have and other people have, even with lower numbers, is that unfortunately, I had an IT company before. What's not unfortunate, but that audience is not really my LinkedIn audience. So that 20,000 doesn't go as far as you think. But when I post content, I don't have to, do a lot of work in order to get some interaction. And I don't need a lot of interaction in order to get a conversation. And so I'm not really looking at the numbers. I'm looking at the quality of the post or the engagement. And personally, I just need one new client a month, because it stacks on top of each other. So having a lot of followers allows those conversations to go a lot easier, your authority to go a lot further. Another thing that I can do, and this is the mechanical portion, I can go and create an email campaign. Now, there's a good side of that and an evil side to that, right? So you have to be very careful. So that's the technical stuff that I can do. But how do I approach these followers before I send them something? And I actually had this conversation with Ed. I said, Ed, I wanted people to know what I'm doing. I want to keep in their ear. I want to add value, right? So it's not value that I think, it's what do the value of those other individuals think. And so Ed suggested, you know what, let them know on LinkedIn first, and try to figure out if they don't want to receive this email or newsletter or whatever it is. And if they do, add them to the blacklist. You don't want to piss people off, and the information you're providing, let them know clearly what that's going to be and allow them to unsubscribe at any time, and then you can get a stream of communications going out like, hey, this post is very valuable for A, B, and C reasons. Hey, this is a most interesting person. Maybe you should check this person out. I have definitely this event that's happening that has these individuals on it. So provide stuff that's going to be valuable to the audience. The other thing is that be very careful on how you position stuff to sell. If you provide value, the people who want to buy will come to you. So it's going to be very rare where you actually have an offer. And if I had to break that down into percentage, I would say 4% of your emails. If you had 20 emails, maybe one saying, hey, I got this new program going on, that if you're interested or you want to talk about it, and you can get away with a little bit of that. But when I say 4%, you're looking at a very small slice, and it's only at a certain time. For example, I have this pilot program that I'm launching with this giveaway. That might be a good email because the giveaway is kind of fun. They're getting prizes, they're getting awards, and they're just helping, and they're not getting charged any money. They're engaging in the audience in order to build a larger audience. Let's see here. I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in with that.
Creative with the way that you're growing your list and growing your network. It's not just within LinkedIn, it's outside of LinkedIn, it's contests, it's the hard work of brick by brick, or you're kind of shaking hands and kissing babies along the way like a politician, but it's not easy.
Oh yeah, Ed, we're building a list right through the show. We have close to 3,700 people already, or whatever it is, right?
That's
and we're growing lists right from here. And the panelists, they let their list know that they're going to be on this show. So everyone's helping to grow this community to provide a level of value. So that's another route,
leveraging one's relationships.
Good point. Yeah. Leveraging relationships.
Something in there, Troy?
Yes, sir.
Just one of the things when it comes to list building that LinkedIn has made really easy now when you want to add to your own list, as well as running these events through your company pages. As long as you've got 150 plus followers on a company page, you can now run LinkedIn Live or any event through your company page, and it automatically asks people to register, and you can download that email list after, which makes it so much easier, because as we know, 100 people will say they're coming, but only 30% of those will show up. And it's a great way to then follow up, and they get to opt in or opt out on that list as well, which is great.
Yeah, so there's two ways to do these LinkedIn Live or LinkedIn events. They're slightly different now. So LinkedIn Live is happening right then, and LinkedIn event, we're doing both. So we use Restream, this is a technology hack, to do an event through the company page to capture that, just like you're saying. But we also run in LinkedIn Live because people are coming in late and they want to check it out. And this is the first time we did it. And it's actually pretty good because we're going to have a few hundred people watch the replay of whether LinkedIn Live or my YouTube channel, right? And so it's just kind of the first pass. And then we'll improve it every, but that's a very, very good point there. Let me see here. Okay, I got one here. What role have relationships played in building your business? I think that's a Craig Bruce question.
Well, I mean, it's they go hand in glove. I mean, for me personally, I launched my business a year and a half ago, and every client that I've had one-on-one was already in my network. They already knew, like, and trusted me and had followed me and my own personal journey. And they saw from a health and lifestyle perspective how I was living my life and the results. And they said, I think there's something to it. It's critical. It's also one of the key values, one of the 3 key values that I live my life by, around developing and nurturing long-term relationships. So it's everything.
Relationships are everything. That's absolutely true. Yeah, I had to learn to have a good relationship with myself first. I used to think, oh, why isn't that happening? And I got, and I said, well, maybe I'm doing these bad habits that I'm just comfortable with, and I said, people change. They change when it hurts more to be the same. That's when change is actually easier, Let's see. Let's see here. I have a great question here. How do I increase my conversion from connecting to a conversation? That's a Mac question.
Is that a Mac question?
Yeah, I'll just point them out who to talk to.
Excellent.
You, the beard.
You with the blue beard. Yeah, absolutely. So connecting to conversion, I think, that dovetails back into what I was saying earlier today with regards to, don't try and go straight in for the connect and then pitch. It's starting with that engagement, as you were saying earlier, Troy. You've got that opportunity to go and look at their posts, go and comment, add value over there. And then once you've done that, it makes so much more sense. If I go, as an example, if Craig does a great post and I go and comment on their post and he responds saying, Mac, thank you for the comment, I can then easily just convert that and go, hey, well, Craig, I tell you what, I'm going to shoot you a connection request or a DM if that's okay. Then straight away, the expectation is already there. And then from that, going into the DM, when I send a connection request, I'll say, hey, I just saw this great post of yours. These are my thoughts. And I keep it very short and brief, but I'm talking about them. And then the chances are they're going to accept my request. And then the next step is not to go straight into the pitch. Again, it's about talking about them and why you're interested in their profile and putting something personalized out there. And that's
I like the word you used, expectation. Expectation. So the ask can't be more than the relationship. That's the expectation. So I always use the term, and I do this quite often, talk about dating, right? Like old fashioned dating, not this Tinder stuff. I'm talking about old-fashioned dating is just getting to know that person and providing a listening ear and a friendly voice. And those short messages are great because most humans can't do more than one thing at a time. So if you send too much information to them, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's like throw up, it's like all over the place. And so I always say, well, before I was a terrible dater, and I would find this beautiful woman and I would go up to her, I say, I find you very beautiful. I want to have 2 babies with you. And I would get smacked. And that's the problem. People are doing that on LinkedIn. They're going to make that baby. And they don't even like you. Why would they want to make that baby? In LinkedIn terms, that business relationship, and those micro conversations actually allow them to absorb information, get you in the trust factor, and allows you to continue that relationship further. Wow, Mac, you have an awful connection, buddy.
I tell you what, I don't know what's happening here today. Normally it's extremely high speed, but for some reason it's saying today it's not loving me.
Oh, it's fine. We still like you. So how do you easily and effortlessly take deep interest in others? Okay, that's a good question. This is a Dan question. Dan, are you there? Did he drop off?
Yeah, he left.
He had a client call.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So I'm gonna leave this to Craig. And it's true because sometimes it's hard to be interested in someone or something that you're not interested in. So how do you easily and effortlessly take deep interest in others? And I'll give this question to you, Craig.
Yeah. So, that you either have it or you don't, I believe. However, if you don't have it, just start asking questions and shut up, right? And fake it. Although I think if you fake it, people can tell. But I think caring about people is a value that you either have or you don't, in my opinion. And if it's not one of your key values, don't talk about yourself. Just ask questions and shut up and listen.
Yeah, I always thought it was a kind of a growth process because before I had kids, I didn't like them. Like I did not like these little animals running around and stuff like that. Now I love kids, but I had to have that kid to have that love, and that was my baby step, right? And so I have to take all these relationships from a certain perspective. And now when I look at people that I'm just not interested in, but I said, Troy, this is another person that may need my help. Let me see if I can form this connection, and to do the things that you said, to kind of sit back, listen, ask questions, and just come from a place of service. I don't know. That would be my answer. I don't know.
So, Troy, I wanted to jump in on that, if that's okay. It's something that I found fascinating because it's one of those key things in networking as well. Is speak less, ask more questions, listen more, and it's extremely powerful. And it's interesting because I did a survey with it a few months ago where I walked into a room, spoke to everybody. Everybody walked out and went, "Wow, Max, incredible guy." And then I came back in and I was like, "Okay, let me ask you some questions." And nobody knew other than my name, didn't know anything, but I could go around the room and I could say, so-and-so has so many children. This is what this one does. This is what that one does, because of asking questions. So that deep interest came through asking questions, as Craig was saying, and listening to the answers, and then going off the back of that. And again, not talking about I, me, and myself. And that's why I walked out of the room. When I asked anybody a question about me personally, nobody could answer the question because they never asked me any questions. I was the one talking about them, which means they were so interested, and they loved me because of the fact I was talking about their favorite subject themselves. So an easy way to be able to translate that.
Yeah, talk about them. It's not about me. And then if they're interested in me, they'll ask, and then drive the conversation that way. Well, we are way past time. Well, not way past. we're 15 minutes past, so we did not too bad, you know. So I will open this up for any other additional questions. I think we have a lot of the people who did ask questions between the LinkedIn Live and the forum already. I do want to appreciate everyone. And if anyone doesn't have these panelists' contact information, just reach out to me and I'll send that to you. You know, reach out to me on LinkedIn because I'm the LinkedIn nerd. And so if you do that, I'll send you to the right person. Panelists or anyone else is actually on the Zoom portion. If you have any questions or any comments, feel free. We have I can stay for another 4 more minutes. I take that as a no. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'll go ahead and drop off. Have a great rest of the week.
Take care.